Hi, Paul. Hi, Pat. How are you doing today?
Hey, Mark. Good. How about yourself?
I'm doing pretty well. One thing that I know Paul has some interest in, and that we've discussed a lot from time to time, is electric cars and where we think the future of electric cars are going. I've seen a lot of headlines lately that are saying sales are down. I just saw one this morning. Sales are down. Electric car makers are panicking. What's your thought on that?
Well, I think a couple things. One, I believe electric car sales are still increasing significantly. If you look at it as a percentage of cars bought, it's increasing. But two, anytime you have a new technology, whether it was iPhone or, I remember airbags back in the day, there's a lot of skepticism about that. Or there's going to be people that are doubting it and that are resistant to change. And so any negative news headline is going to get a lot of media attention, a lot of publicity, because people are going to feel justified that, oh yeah, look, it's failing, this new technology that, isn't going to work out like everyone said. So you're going to get a lot of that, which that's just human nature. But my overall opinion of electric cars is, as an owner of one, is they are much more convenient than gas cars. You get to charge it up at home. So every morning you essentially have a full tank of gas or a full tank of electricity. There's a lot less maintenance they have to worry about. The fundamentals of it is much simpler. Like the total amount of moving parts you have in an electric car is like maybe a dozen or so, versus a gas car, you're going to have several hundred, or I don't know, maybe even 1,000, who knows. So in theory, with time, as manufacturers figure out how to make them, the cost should come down a lot. The range will only get better, and the infrastructure for charging is just going to keep getting better. So as you see that happen over the next 5 years or so, my prediction is for the average person, it's going to become a very easy choice to choose electric over gas, just because the upsides to electric are much higher than the downsides. And this is assuming that the cost of electric cars comes down quite a bit.
Well, one thing I think about a lot is people who don't have garages and things can't easily charge. Like if you live in a condo, you park in a big sea of cars parking lot.
Yeah.
You're not. It seems to me there's going to be, for a long time anyway, kind of a percentage that's just never going to be convenient for, just from the way they live and the way they park. Would you ever buy an electric car, Pat?
At this point, I don't think I'm in the market for one, mostly because of the cost, but also there's convenience, but there's also inconvenience if you're taking longer trips in a way, and you also got to map out your route differently. And Paul and us took a trip down to North Carolina to see you, and of course, we had to stop a couple times, and it wasn't too much of an inconvenience in that case because everybody had to take a bathroom break, or we wanted to get some food or snacks or whatever. So I guess in some senses it's not too big of a deal, but at this point I'd rather just gas up, I think.
You just bought a Jeep. Would you ever buy an electric Jeep?
I don't know if it would be the same. It doesn't make cool noises like the gas-powered engine that I have.
A little more when you drive.
With the aftermarket exhaust and the build, but maybe in the future things will evolve and I'll change my mind on that, but at this point I don't think I would.
And I think that's a strong argument for a lot of people, that they want to have a gas car because they like the feel of it, they like the engine, they like the noise. People say it has more soul. But I think that's a minority of people. I think when you look at the average person choosing to buy a Honda CR-V or Toyota RAV4, which I think the RAV4 was the best-selling car up until maybe very recently. I don't think they're considering that. I think they mostly consider price, reliability. I'm sure range would be a factor, or gas mileage. But I think if those are going to be your typical features you're looking for, I think the decision process will be a little bit different.
Yeah, I feel like if I could afford it, I'd love to have an electric car just for like commuting around town and stuff. But
yeah.
I do kind of feel like I just don't want it to sort of cramp my style when we're doing long trips late at night and stuff. Even the 10 minutes to fill up, or the 10 minutes to charge up is longer than to fill up at a gas station and stuff.
It is, and you have to worry a little bit about will there be the infrastructure there.
So maybe electric cars still will be the future, but I think maybe that future is a little further out than a lot of companies said just a couple of years ago.
There was a lot of hype a couple of years ago, and I think you had GM and a few other car companies making really big claims about the next 5 years, and they were going to catch Tesla. And I think they didn't understand how difficult it was to make them. Apparently, making electric cars is very, very challenging. They don't have the right engineers in place. My guess is 5 to 10 years from now.
Okay.
I want you to hold me to it. I think 5 to 10 years from now, we'll see 80 to 90% of new cars sold being electric.
Okay.
That's my
high number.
prediction.
Yeah.
Now, I'm giving myself a long runway. 10 years is a long ways off.
Yeah, well,
But
we'll see. We'll come back to this in 10 years.
The one sticking point I think that you brought up earlier we didn't talk about was if you don't have a garage at home, it'd be much more convenient. Much more inconvenient to have an electric car. So the question I have is, will we see a lot more street parking? Will we see a lot more condos having lots of electric parking spots? Or will they be slower to adopt that, which would cause slower adoption? I think as more people want electric cars, condos and apartments will be forced to adapt and change to include a lot more parking.
Okay.
With it.
So speaking of 10 years in the future, let's now move a couple hundred years into the future.
Okay.
And we're going to be talking today about the battle for Ontario, which was a Star Trek fan film sort of that we made back in, I think, 2003 or 2004. We're going to be looking at a 2005 re-edited version I did. This is Scene by Scene. I'm Mark Gross.
I'm Paul Kraig.
And I'm Pat Diablo.
All right, so let's go straight into it. So we start in the bridge of the USS Liberty, and we are, Lieutenant Peter says that we are low on fuel. We have to go to Ontario to fix it.
Now, what was the fuel source in the original Star Trek, I wonder?
So it's dilithium crystals, which are a type of fictional crystal that somehow the warp core runs on. And so I guess that's kind
Maybe
of
they're looking for more dilithium crystals.
Yeah.
So amazing AI. This ship, the style of it is great.
The USS Liberty
Very spacious.
flies by, and we have this opening credits with Captain Phillip. It looks like a lightsaber, which is definitely not Star Trek.
Peter turned grenade into the bridge.
Yeah. And then I'm laughing evilly as Captain Magicanus, one of the Magicons from the GK Star Trek films that we did, a fictional alien, of course.
So I'd like to point out you didn't have your alien disguise on this scene. A little bit of an oversight.
In the first scene where you see Captain Magicanus, he says that he has a machine that can tap into all Starfleet communications, and when we were watching this together last night, Paul said, what's the end game
What's
here?
his goal here? Okay, so he has this amazing device. He can intercept their communications. It seems very valuable. How are you going to use it? And does he clarify his plan? He just hears people and decides to go kill them all.
Yes. That never becomes clear because we move immediately to him getting his alien lackeys to... He needs more fuel for something.
Does he also need more fuel? Is this a coincidence they ran into each other on the planet?
Yes, I guess
They're just
so.
lackeys.
And so the lackeys
also to get more
have... so we have the Magicons portrayed with shirts over their heads, so I guess they have no neck, which kind of differentiates them from humans.
Yeah. It's the first time we see
clumsy.
Magicons.
Yeah.
They're a little bit on the clumsy side.
Yeah.
Yeah, Paul's Magicon bows and falls down. And then Captain Magicanus hears that someone else's, that the Starfleet crew is at Ontario to get more energy as well, and I'll just attack their ship. And so we're back in the bridge of the Liberty.
Printer.
And yes, Lieutenant Peter is typing on a printer as they near the planet. A really old Epson inkjet that was my parents' first printer.
That works better than my printer.
So they approach the
I don't
planet.
have a printer.
They're in the
lucky I got
transporter room.
Here they go to beam down. He's ready to shoot, aiming down the scope.
And he has a
He's ready for something to.
Lieutenant
I know.
Peter has a marshmallow shooter that we
Yeah.
used to have, made out of PVC. You put a marshmallow in it, and you could blow it out.
Mm-hmm.
They appear on the planet, and they're looking around, and they are suddenly attacked by
Were
the
they
Magicon
attacked,
lackeys.
though? This guy's just hopping around and laughing. And then Lieutenant Peter immediately stuns him and then shoots to kill, I think.
Yes.
Is that what I'm seeing here correctly?
Yeah, and he
With the
slowly-
red and green?
He slowly dies, and then so of course we only had, well, I guess 3 actors in
Yeah.
this, and so you were doubling, and we could only have you in one, sharing the screen with people in one scene.
Mm-hmm.
And so then Pat's Magicon attacks Captain Phillip, and Captain Phillip says, "What the heck are you? I don't want to know," and just
Like,
shoots.
you think a captain of a USS Starship or whatever, I think you'd have a little bit more diplomacy than that.
Their primary mission is to discover new things and
Well, he
seek out
discovered
new
it,
lives.
and then immediately killed it. All right.
Disposed of it. Took the fuel.
Yeah, it's just
Yes.
there for one reason.
So apparently then the fuel is just laying all over the place because Captain Phillip goes up and like, let's get that fuel and get out of here. Let's get that gas and get out of here. He
Gas.
said. So,
Dilithium.
here's some, and they just pick it up from.
He's picking a little one up. Captain Phillips got a lot more.
And Lieutenant Pete into the communicator screams, "Get us the heck out of here now!" So they're beamed out, and they're panting very heavily when they
Not sure why they ran out
back
of
on the
breath.
ship.
Something happened between these two scenes where they were both working on their cardio and we missed it.
So something very stressful, of course. So Captain Phillips says something like, "Thank goodness we got out of there in one piece." And,
Yeah.
and Lieutenant Phillips says, "I'm totally with you, man."
I'm totally with you, man.
Kind
Did
of a-
I say that, or
I think that was
did Pat say that?
Pat said that. "I'm totally with you,
Yeah,
man."
I think that was
Totally with you
me. I was
there.
just trying to be cool about it.
Totally with you there.
I'm totally with you, man. So we're back on the bridge then. They come up the spiral staircase. I guess no elevator or of any type on the ship.
They have a cheapo ship.
Lieutenant Pete goes back to his printer and says, "What the heck is that?" And suddenly they're hit and they fall the wrong
They fall
direction
up-
on the
upwards,
screen.
yeah.
Fall upwards.
Under attack
We made a little bit of a problem with that for
by
sure.
Magicons. I remember this part.
And
Back to
they
typing
say
in
the
his printer.
computer is running really establish contact. The computer is running really slow today, so I can only get a still image.
There it is.
Which of course was because that was like the effect on camera effects before I had any computer editing. Captain Magicanus forewarns them that they're going to be destroyed with an atomic blast.
Which, what do you do with that information? Like, if you're working on your ship and the captain says, "Prepare for an atomic blast," like, what do I do? Just kiss my ass goodbye? I don't know. Alright.
I don't know, but they warn everyone on the ship
At least
to
they warn
prepare,
them.
and then they get hit with it, and they're apparently not very prepared.
Yeah, apparently
The
not.
ship is spiraling through space, we see in the next scene. And then Lieutenant Peters says, "A pipe burst through my station." Captain Phillip knows that now carbon dioxide is leaking through into the room. And we have this long scene of coughing
This
at
coughing.
different
I'm
angles.
hyperventilating in this show.
So they cough for a while.
Quite a long
The
time.
ship shakes around a little more. We have some close-ups of them coughing.
This is
I
the
feel bad for Paul here. He's inhaling
just hailing
Directly
CO
in
right in
here.
his face.
He's Captain Phillips breathing it all in, so no one else has to. What a good captain.
And yes, and so it's blowing right in the captain's face, apparently.
Paul, you're doing all right.
There's an
Surviving
engine
up there.
malfunction.
Yeah.
I think I popped a balloon. There's a popping
I
sound.
remember
I say,
that.
oh no, engine malfunction.
Engine malfunction, like
It
coughing
goes
all the time.
unaddressed. And then next thing, Lieutenant Peter notices there is a Planet Erie is dead ahead. They try to make a crash landing, and we come to this very classic scene.
This is a real tearjerker.
The music from Titanic is playing
Doesn't
in the
get better
background.
than that. Fades
And
to
it says
black.
later, and we open a dark scene.
As it fades in.
There's a mess on the floor.
You see the printer that Lieutenant Pete
The printer
was typing
crushed.
on
Probably weighed a couple 100 pounds.
has crushed him to death.
And the captain runs over. It's going to be okay. We need to take you to the doctor's office.
The doctor's office.
And Lieutenant Peter says, "It's too late for me now. Tell my family that I love them," and pulls out a fully framed picture
Of his two,
Just had that in my
allegedly of his two
from
children.
his breast pocket.
Yeah. What
And then,
Fully intact, by the way.
and that was actually a picture of me and Pat, like some Sears pictures we had taken, family pictures.
Gotta love it.
But I was holding a Star Trek model in that picture, like an Enterprise model. So
Pat, I almost dropped you on the head right there as I picked
Yeah.
up your lifeless corpse.
yeah, so
Gonna deliver
Captain
you to
picks
your
up
family.
Lieutenant Peter's lifeless corpse, and
That
we
is
notice
the end.
rigor mortis has already set in. He's totally
He's
stiff.
Totally stiff.
And that brings us then to the end of the episode. So, do you think that this episode stands the test of time?
I think so. I think it really gets the emotions, really makes you think about the motivations of the characters, and makes you see their character flaws. Really shows the human element of it, I would
Yeah.
say.
I would agree.
I sense a little bit
Well
of
said.
sarcasm in there. But in the context of James Crabb, it definitely was one of the better things that
big
we made
step
by
up
ourselves.
from James Crabb. Our parents actually sat through this entire one instead of asking us to turn it off multiple times.
Yeah, they weren't a huge fan of James Crabb,
Yeah,
but
which I couldn't understand why at the time. I thought it was the best TV show ever, but
so this was definitely a step in the right direction, and just a year or two later we would have the first Agent 07 movie, Now or Never, and that certainly was another step in a more mature direction. So this has been Scene by Scene. Thanks for listening. Scene by Scene is produced by GK Music and Magic Voice Records.